87 miles of roadway. 0 lives lost during its construction. 1 fatality for every 8 miles. That is the Karakoram Highway, and those digits are not a memorial. They are a metric. The roadway did not adhere to a blueprint drafted by engineers. It traced the routes that traders had chosen over centuries. The same altitudes, the same valley bottoms, the same crossings that pack animals had etched into the earth long before any pavement was laid. The Silk Road did not vanish. It settled down and became Pakistan. This path goes south to north from ice fields on the highway to a rock face bearing 5,000 engravings in 5 tongues to a lake that placed 12 meters of that road under 330 ft of water to a mosque whose designer defeated 43 proposals from 17 nations with the form of a Bedouin tent. Each location is evidence, not landscape. Every route eventually arrives at a spot where the asphalt ends. What awaits at the terminus of this one is absent from every chart made prior to the 20th century, and some of it appears on no map whatsoever. The noise reaches you before the panorama does. Rubber scraping against granite. The path cut into a shelf that ought not exist on a sheer rock face. The atmosphere thin enough at 15,000 feet that inhaling demands a conscious effort. This is not a roadway built for ease. 87 miles from the Punjab lowlands to the Chinese frontier, 17 years of labor, 8,000 tons of blasting agents, and 0 deaths. 1 for every 8 miles of completed surface. The Karakoram Highway does not present itself as an engineering marvel. It presents itself as a geographic certainty that someone chose to contest. The contest was not recent. The passes that the highway follows were picked by merchants journeying between China and the subcontinent from the 2nd century BCE. The same altitudes, the same valley floors, the same principle of minimal resistance through some of the most resistant terrain on the planet. 3,000 inscriptions and 20,000 rock etchings line the route, left by voyagers who used these crossings long before anyone transported asphalt. They are a visitor log for a road that did not yet exist. The Khunjerab Pass at 15,466 feet was chosen over the Mintaka Pass in 1966. Chinese engineers judged Mintaka more susceptible to aerial assault. The trucks that traverse it today bear their own visual lexicon. Full patty, blossom, and foliage art that covers every panel, every bumper, every inch of accessible surface. The custom dates to the 1930s when artisans trained in Mughal court painting lost their sponsors after British colonial restructuring and transitioned into commercial vehicle ornamentation. Each truck carries a Taj, a carved wooden crown above the cab, and a system of imagery specific enough that unlettered drivers could recognize their vehicle, their operator, and their owner from a distance. A mobile addressing system rendered in paint. At 4 in the morning, a truck driver spreads a prayer rug on the gravel shoulder, faces west, and prays before the roadway awakens. Breakfast is dali from a roadside dhaba. Lentils and rice 40 cents consumed standing, the motor still warm. In the Waki communities along the northern segment, the rite before a long trip involves sacrificing a goat and marking the vehicle's bumper with blood. A pre-Islamic custom for placating mountain spirits in Nasa that has endured through the arrival of every later faith. The Mar lives on the crags above the road, Pakistan's national animal. 5,000 of them in the wild, sure-footed on rock faces that no road could traverse. In the 7th century, the Chinese monk Xuan Zhang passed through this corridor and documented the realms he encountered along the way. His record remains the most thorough written depiction of what the Silk Road resembled when it was in active operation. The highway goes through it. On both sides of it, the Karakoram Range does not. What those walls contain above the road, behind the rock face, in the valleys that open only to those who abandon the pavement is where the route was always headed. Karakoram, black gravel in Turkish, named not for what it appears like from a distance, but for what it feels like underfoot. 4 peaks above 26,000 feet within 310 meters. 10,500 glaciers covering 22,510 kilometers, the surface area of New Hampshire, frozen and piled vertically against the sky. Only 3 passes cross it. Kunjarab Mintaka Kilik. That is not a selection. That is a sieve. Only merchandise valuable enough to justify the crossing moved through here, which is why the Silk Road ran exactly where it did and not elsewhere. K2 at 28,251 feet is the second tallest mountain on Earth, called Kori by the Balti people. Great Mountain. A name that treats the peak as a presence rather than a figure. Nanga Parbat on the western edge is called Diamir, King of Mountains, and has claimed more climbers per summit attempt than any other 8,000 The glaciers here do not behave the way glaciers elsewhere do. While most of the world's ice recedes, many Karakoram glaciers are expanding or remaining stable. The Karakoram anomaly, driven by increased winter snowfall from westerly jet streams not yet fully comprehended. The Balti say K2 was once an inland sea. The geology agrees. The Tethys Sea filled this region 50 million years ago, and what compressed into mountain was once seabed. Folk memory and geology concur in different tongues. The Balters, who supply high-altitude expeditions, carry 55 pounds above 20,000 feet for $25 to $35 a day without supplemental oxygen, without insurance. Before crossing high passes, Waki travelers add a stone to the Buddhist cairns that still mark the routes. Reading Abiism Miller as they do, the Islamic invocation layered over a Buddhist practice that predates Islam in these mountains by 1,000 years. Marco Polo passed through the Pamirs in 1273 and described a sheep with horns reaching 6 feet. The Marco Polo sheep, still living at 15,000 feet on these ridges, still carrying the name of the traveler who recorded them. Between the walls of this range, there is a small gap, a meadow at the base of Nanga Parbat, the mountain that has killed more climbers than it has led through. German surveyors named it in 1934. They called it Fairy Meadows. The glacier is not white. It is gray, covered in rock debris fallen from the racket face above. The dark surface absorbing heat faster than clean ice would, accelerating the melt it cannot stop. Step within 30 feet of the ice wall and the temperature drops 5 degrees Fahrenheit before you have time to register the change. Between 10 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon, when the sun reaches the Serac directly, sections of the ice face collapse without warning. A crack that carries across the entire valley. The sound arriving before the movement has finished. Under the glacier, water moves through channels in the ice that are audible but invisible. The sound of a river that cannot be seen. The Balti call this Reik Daria, the Reikit River. Understanding a glacier not as frozen mass but as a river moving too slowly to watch. The same water in a different state of time. The Himalayan ibex tracks the glacier as it retreats, following the mineral licks exposed on freshly uncovered rock faces, ascending as the ice descends, grazing the chemistry of the newly revealed stone. An animal reading the glacier the way a merchant reads a road, looking for what it yields, moving toward what it opens. The herders who bring livestock to the terminal moraine do not cross it. No law prevents them. No fence marks the line. Generations of transmission have established that the moraine is where the land of people ends and the land of the mountain begins. And that has been sufficient. According to those who document these communities, the porters who work on the glacier itself come from Skardu, not from Tato, the village closest to the ice. Because Tato regards the glacier as something that should not be worked on. The division of labor follows belief, not contract. In 1895, Albert Frederick Mummery approached Nanga Parbat through this corridor and disappeared on the Diamir face with 2 Gurkha companions. No bodies were found. In 1953, Herman Boole reached the summit alone after 41 hours, having left his partner behind at High Camp. On the descent, darkness fell before he could locate the route down. He stood through the night on a ledge at 26,000 feet. Not seated, not lying down, standing because there was no surface wide enough to do otherwise. Waiting for enough light to move. He survived. Racket was the approach route both times. When a glacier retreats, it temporarily releases more melt water than before. The exposed surface area increases. The melt accelerates. The rivers downstream run higher. Farmers see more water and plant more crops. The abundance is real and it is borrowed. Pakistan is currently in that borrowed period. What the racket carries toward the valley is not a permanent supply but a ledger being drawn down. The balance visible only to those measuring it across decades rather than seasons. The rock inscriptions near Racket Bridge record the passage of Buddhist pilgrims in the 3rd through 7th centuries. Travelers who used this same corridor when the ice was in a different position than it holds today. The route does not change. What surrounds it does. 7 to 10 granite pinnacles rising from the valley floor. Each one a different angle of the same morning light. Sharp where the sun catches the edge, black where the shadow holds. The shape is not dramatic geology. It is the result of a 100 million years of being attacked. The Karakoram Baltic granite, harder than the metamorphic rock around it, still standing after the ice and wind stripped everything softer away. What looks like a cathedral is what remains when the surrounding stone has been removed. Tupop Dan, the highest of the group at 20,033 feet, is called that in Waki. Tupo Sun Dan Mountain. The mountain that meets the sun first. Not a sacred name, a practical one. Next to the pinnacles, Pasu Glacier lies flat and white and apparently harmless. It is not. In 2004, the glacier surged approximately 1 mile in a single season, advancing faster than anything that size has any right to move, blocking the Karakoram Highway for a period before the ice stabilized. The Waki people of Pasu village have a legend about a ghoul, a spirit that lives in the glaciers, creases, and leads strangers into the ice. The story encodes something real. Creases and surge glaciers open and close on timelines that do not correspond to the surface appearance, and an outsider reading the ice visually will misread it. The legend is a knowledge system dressed as folklore. The Waki are here because the Silk Road broke. Their language is Iranian, related to Persian, carried from the Wakhan Corridor, the narrow strip connecting Central Asia to the subcontinent. When Russian and later Soviet pressure closed that passage between 1870 and 1948, Sherpi yak cheese salt cured dried until it is hard enough to knock on a table costing 50 requires no refrigeration. No cooking, no preparation. It is exactly the food a person carries over a pass. What looks like stillness from below is in motion. What looks flat and safe is what surges. The water coming off this ice fills the lake ahead. A lake that has no natural right to exist here. Created by a landslide that killed 20 people and buried a village under 300 feet of water. At 6 o'clock in the morning, the lake surface is flat enough to reflect the Pasu cones inverted. The real pinnacles in their mirror image indistinguishable from the right angle. By 10, the color has shifted from cobalt to turquoise. Glacial rock flour suspended in the water column refracting blue light. The same mechanism that makes glacial lakes this color everywhere on Earth. By afternoon, the surface goes lavender. 30 to 50 feet down. On a clear day, when the light hits at the right angle, the asphalt of the Karakoram Highway is still visible on the lake floor. Brown trout swim above it. On the 4th of January 2010, at roughly 4 in the morning, approximately 50 million cubic meters of rock fell into the Hunza River. 20 people died immediately. 26 houses were buried in the first minutes. The water began rising 1 meter per day. Within 5 months, the lake had reached 13 miles in length and 330 feet in depth, submerging 12 meters of the Karakoram Highway, the villages of Idabad, and parts of Shishgat and Gulman. 25,000 people were cut off from supply lines for 5 months. China and Pakistan decided not to drain the lake. Instead, 5 bypass tunnels were drilled through the surrounding rock between 2010 and 2015. 4.4 meters of tunnel to route the highway around a body of water that was not on any map 4 years earlier. The boat operators who run tourists across the lake were subsistence farmers in 2009. Each morning, at least one of them sets out over the coordinates where his house used to stand. The older residents can identify rooftops through the water on sunny days. They do not point them out to visitors. On the 4th of January each year, the community performs the Fatiha prayer facing the water rather than toward Mecca because the people they are praying for are under the surface, not in a direction. In the quiet autumn evenings when the water is low and the lake is still, some residents say they have heard a rooster calling from below the waterline. This is not presented. It is presented as what some people hear in certain conditions of silence and left at that. The brown trout in the lake were not introduced. They established themselves in the cold, clear, oxygen-rich water that the river below never provided. An ecology created by accident, thriving in a habitat that did not exist before the disaster that made it. The Silk Road passed through this gorge for 2,000 years before the highway covered it. The highway passed through for 35 years before the lake covered it. The lake has been here 15. Whatever comes next will pass through, too. Rakapashi at 25,551 feet catches the sun 30 minutes before the valley floor does. The upper snowfields turning orange, then gold, then white as the light descends. By which time Karimabad at 7,546 feet is only beginning to wake. The glacier melt channels that run through the terrace fields make a sound audible throughout the town 24 hours a day. Water engineered by gravity into exactly the places the crops needed. A system whose maintenance schedules and lowest are held in collective memory rather than in any written document. Allocated by Jirga the same way or they have been since the 18th century with very few disputes. In April, the apricot orchards turn the entire valley white with blossom. In July, the fruit is split and laid on flat rooftops to dry. 21 varieties. The kernels pressed for oil that cooks with, conditions hair, waterproofs leather, and was moving along the Silk Road as a trade good by the 5th century. Baltic Fort has stood above Karimabad for roughly 1,200 years in its various iterations. Its construction technique a physical record of the route it controlled. Daji Diwari timber framing from Central Asia. Wooden balconies in a Tibetan style. Colored glass windows added during the Mughal period. 3 civilizations that traveled through here left their methods in a single building. The Murs who held the fort extracted toll from caravans for 7 centuries. Every merchant moving between China and the subcontinent paid to pass through this valley because there was no other way through that 60-mile gorge. In 1891, British Indian forces ended the arrangement. At Ganesh village below the fort, more than 5,000 inscriptions cover the rock faces along the old caravan path. Texts in Kharosthi, Brahmi, Sanskrit, Sogdian, and Chinese dated from the 2nd through 8th centuries. They are a guest registry for a road that ran here for 600 years. Travelers recorded their names, their prayers, their passage in whatever language they carried. The longevity myth about Hunza, that people routinely lived to 120, that the valley held the secret to long life, was largely created by American magazines in the 1950s and sustained by the Mir who governed the valley at the time because it attracted foreign interest. A Columbia University medical team arrived in 1960 and found widespread goiter, malnutrition, tuberculosis and high infant mortality. The Mir did not correct the record. The story was worth more uncorrected. Burushaski, the language spoken in Hunza, has no confirmed relatives anywhere in the world. The Silk Road moved people and goods and languages in every direction through this valley for centuries. And the language that was here before it came has no explanation. Golden eagles with wingspans reaching 7.5 foot hunt above the terrace fields. Marmots, hares, young ibex. The Silk Road did not just pass through Hunza Valley. It sat down here, left things behind, and moved on. South and west, where the route descends into valleys the outside world has barely named, those deposits become harder to read and more specific to find. The Neelam River is turquoise, not as a description, but as a fact of physics. Glacial meltwater carries rock flour particles smaller than 2,000 of a millimeter suspended in the water column, refracting light at the blue-green wavelength. During the monsoon, sediment turns it brown. During the dry season, it returns to turquoise. The color follows a geological calendar, not a human one. At the village of Karen, wooden houses lean over the riverbank close enough that their reflections sit on the water below them. Laundry lines crossing between windows. Children on the rocks at the edge where the current slows. The Neelam Valley runs for 124 miles along the line of control, the military boundary between Pakistan-administered and Indian-administered Kashmir. The Kashmir stag, the antlered, the hongle is critically endangered with fewer than 300 individuals remaining globally. Its range includes the dense forest on the valley's eastern edge where the line of control has unintentionally created a no-hunting buffer zone on the Indian side. A military boundary that no ecologist designed is doing conservation work that no wildlife. At the northern end of the valley at 6,499 feet, the ruins of Sharda Peeth sit largely unprotected on a stone platform 22 feet wide and 16 feet high. Between the 6th and 8th centuries, this was one of the 4 largest centers of learning in South Asia. A place that developed the Sharda script, ancestor of the Gurmukhi and Dogri alphabets, still in use today, and whose scholarship traveled along Silk Road connections to contribute to the Baghdad translation movement of the 8th through 12th centuries. The ideas that moved from this valley reached scholars in Baghdad who were translating Greek philosophy into Arabic. The ruins have no fence. When the first snow falls in Neelam Valley, schools close without official announcement. The mountain signals a holiday that no calendar marks. Families cook harissa overnight. Wheat and mutton slow-cooked for 6 to 8 hours, finished with clarified butter and cinnamon, eaten as breakfast the morning after the first snowfall. The local tradition holds that a guardian spirit protects the Sharda ruins. That those who see the site and remain silent will dream of where ancient manuscripts are hidden. The legend functions practically. Silence is the correct approach, and the tradition of silence has protected the site more reliably than any physical barrier. The road climbs out of the valley floor toward 12,000 feet, the trees thin. The sound of the river falls away. Above the last pass, there is a lake that does not appear on the most world maps. The people of Kashmir call it the Mirror of Heaven. The name is not a boast. It is an instruction about how to look at it. The Karakoram Highway follows the same valley floors that merchants chose 2,000 years before anyone poured asphalt over them. 8 centuries of footsteps before the asphalt. The same river it followed. Then the surface changed. The logic did not. The Silk Road did not disappear. It became the ground. It became the Khyber in the passes. Tate is that the highway follows. The inscription still in the rock at Ganesh. The language in Hunza that no linguist can explain. The tent-shaped mosque at the foot of the Margala Hills designed by a man from Turkey. Funded by a king from Arabia. Built in a city planned by a Greek. A road that stops is not a road that ends. It is a road that became somewhere. Which stop on this journey stayed with you the longest and why? Tell us below. Thank you for traveling with us through every mile of this journey. Your time means everything to us. God bless you. God bless your family. And God bless every journey you take. If this journey touched your heart, share it with your family, your friends, anyone who deserves to experience this. Subscribe and join us for the next one. We have special gifts waiting for you down the road.